Good day, good people. My name is Brad King, and this is the Downtown Writers Jam video podcast, which is part of the Solid Listen podcast network. Max and Dawg and I are coming to you from deep inside the jam bunker. Very excited today. I'm going to move my mic for just a second because the t-shirt is important. The Regal Beagle from Three's Company. But it's important because today on the show, I have Alice Kaltman. And her book, Dawg Towne, is out right now. And we spend a lot of time talking about dogs, even though the book is not about dogs. But there are dogs in the book. And you'll hear all about that during the interview. So Alice is first of all, she's wonderful. The conversation was fantastic. Such a lovely woman. And she is a short story writer, generally. And she has written some kids' books as well. Dawg Towne is her first adult fiction novel, and which we talked a little bit about. If you listen to the show and you've heard me interview short story writers, they always sort of reluctantly go into novel writing. And like one of my favorite writers, Shannon McLeod, Alice has done this in an interesting way. She's written the story the way she wanted to. Her short stories have appeared all over the place. Hobart, Lost Balloon, The Pinch, Joyland, Volume 1, Brooklyn, lots of other places. She lives in New York, Brooklyn, where every writer in America seems to live. And they have a little place in Montauk, which is, I believe, where we had our conversation. And she not only writes, surfs, and plays with her dogs. So before we get to that interview, a little bit of business. And if you've been here, you know what's coming. So the Jam comes out every Wednesday. That's our proper 60-minute long-form show. And the video podcast comes out Monday, Friday-ish, both on the podcast channel and on the Solid Listen Podcast Network YouTube channel. To help us spread the word, we need you to do two things. Tell your friends about us and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also head on over to our Facebook page, leave us a review there, or head to thewritersjam.com and leave us a testimonial through the website. While you're there, you can do a few things. Looking for a book to buy? Click on the bookshop link. Looking for a book recommendation? Click on the book reviews. If all of that is too much, sign up for our newsletter, and this shit will come right to your email box once a month. You can also support everybody on the Solid Listen Podcast Network. Click on that Patreon button, and when you do, for just a couple bucks a month, you'll get commercial-free episodes, bonus content, all kinds of stuff from everybody across the network. Now, this was a fun conversation. I like Alice, and it's a little more craft than normal. Actually, I think maybe like a third of this is about dogs, and then some on craft, because I am really fascinated by short story people that try to move into novels. Not try, she did. And the way in which those structures different, and the way in which you try to explore questions and ideas. And in particular, the question that she asks in this book, or the one that she's exploring about fitting in and finding purpose and understanding identity, are themes that have shown up a lot in the last month or two of the program. So I don't know how I've ended up in that space, but like that's what's happening right now. Is maybe that's something I'm in, and so that's how I gravitate to. But it's really interesting in the way she chose to explore it, and the sort of through line and the hook for how everything goes. It reminds me very much of like 90s indie movies. There was a movie called Go. There were all these movies about like it'd be an evening and you're sort of seeing everybody move through the night, and they all have intersecting stories that may go through a location or one person. And that's sort of what's happening in the story, is that they're interconnected in the sense of location, and they're interconnected in the sense of what is happening with everybody. But it's a novel structure that maybe is a little different than what you're used to, which I think is fantastic, because every writer finds their voice and finds their sort of structure for what they're trying to do. So it was a lovely conversation, and it's always fun for me to just get a glimpse in the lives of the writers and of the people, and like what interests them. And I think you'll see very quickly, based on who she is and how her life is and what she does for a job and where they live, why these kinds of questions and why these kinds of stories come up. So I'm really excited for you guys to get to that. And I appreciate you stopping by the bunker, spend a little time with Max and I. He's lounging on his pillow. I hope that your day is going well. I hope that you're taking care of yourself and each other. And I hope that you will sit back and enjoy my conversation with Alice Kaltman the next 30 minutes or so.
I had dogs growing up my whole life, right? So I had, a couple of dogs through my childhood. And then as an adult I lived in Manhattan and, so it was like, no way. I mean, it was always so kind of weird because that was like back in like the 80s and you'd see people with dogs in Manhattan. You were like, what are you doing with a dog in the city?
Yeah.
And they poop all over the place and nobody picked it up. And it's sort of that kind of changed.
Yeah.
And then then what happened is like my husband is an artist. And so we, once we were together, we both loved dogs. I mean, he had dogs growing up. It was sort of like whenever we're around people's dogs, we'd always be like more focused on their dogs than them. Yeah. But because of his studio situation, he was like, we can't have a dog because the dog will, mess stuff up, or I'll be the one who's always stuck walking the dog.
Yeah. Is he a painter or a sculptor? What does he do?
He's a sculptor.
Oh, so there's like stuff all over the place. Yeah.
Exactly. But what happened was Ollie was abandoned in our front yard.
Ugh.
And so it was kind of like, we tried to, we did all sorts of searches to find, who he might belong to. He wasn't chipped or anything. He was about 10 months old. And so we were both kind of like, because we now have a house with a yard. Yeah. And it's in Brooklyn, but for Brooklyn, it's like the life a dog wants, because we not only have our own little backyard, but our neighbors on both sides, we don't have any fences, and they all love dogs. So we have like three consecutive backyards that he can like run around in. So it's
that really is perfect. And that's like,
yeah. And then we have this little house out at the beach. And so he's got, he's kind of got the best life. Like somebody knew when they dumped him in our front yard, what kind of life he was going to have.
We'll tell that story. I think those people are terrible, but we'll go with your story. Yours is a happier story. I bought this house. I'm out here in Pittsburgh. I bought this house specifically because it's in the city, but I live in like the only suburban neighborhood in the city. So it is sort of our version of Brooklyn. Like it's right by all the areas, but like I have a backyard that's fenced in, and everybody in this neighborhood has a fenced in yard, and probably 80% of the people have dogs. So you walk your dog and it's just like, oh, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's got 2 floors, so he runs up and down and out in the backyard. And like, like Pittsburgh is also weird. I don't know how much you know about it, but it's weird because we have like multiple 700-acre parks in the city.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I can I'm 5 minutes away from 2 700-acre parks.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good.
Really, well, Pittsburgh is on my my bucket list of places I really want to go, because I've always been fascinated with it, particularly since Mysteries of Pittsburgh, the Michael Chabon book. I was just so like, oh my God, this sounds so cool, and the way he described it, and the kind of the hills, and then I know a bunch of people who live there now. I know you too.
Yeah.
Actually, the editor of my book, of Dawg Towne, lives in Pittsburgh. So so we're hoping to kind of organize some kind of reading thing maybe in the fall and come down there and do something, which would be really cool.
Let me know. I have a ton of writer friends here, and I know all the bookstores and stuff, so we can help you out however we do it.
That'd be great. That'd be great, because I really want to see. I've always thought like it sounds like such a cool place to live, and it does. It sounds very much like a kind of a Brooklyn-y kind of city.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's 5 hours away. Like there's so many people from like New Yorkers that are here because you can literally get on a megabus for $12 and be down in the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a third of the price, maybe a quarter of the price.
Yeah. Totally.
So tell me about Dawg Towne.
Well, Dawg Towne, my book. My t-shirt.
Yeah. It is a house of artists. I can see like we have all of the stuff ready to go.
Yeah, I know. This was actually my publisher's idea. So we got them for the launch, and we also did something where people could, if they ordered at the launch, if they ordered more than 2 books, they got a T-shirt also. So it was like, we're just trying to do what we can.
Yeah.
Dawg Towne. What's my first adult meaning literary novel? I've written 2 other novels, but they're young adult novels, and it's a multi-character So it's basically, there are, I always can't ever remember, it's 5 or 6 storylines that are all connected about people who live in this town called Town. It's like kind of a generic, I'd say East Coast, Mid-Atlantic, smallish suburb that's kind of close to a rural area, but also close to a city. So it's very sort of everywheresville or something. And it's really about how these people's lives intersect. They're all kind of searching for connection and kind of have their own foibles and sort of secrets. And the way that they're all connected is one of the main characters is a young, well, I guess she's a millennial, but she'd now be called a Gen X because, you know, she's in her like early 20s, I guess. She's sort of this lost soul who goes around and basically starts stealing people's dogs because she thinks that they're being mistreated, and she's a savior, and she has this sort of whole vision of creating this sort of dog sanctuary. So she's kind of the hub without anyone else knowing she's the hub. And so it's really, it sort of started from a short story I wrote about her. And when I was thinking about writing a novel, which I kind of resisted because I was really into short story writing.
Yeah, I've heard this story before.
Yeah, right. Like you just want to keep writing short stories.
Yeah.
I guess I need to write a novel. So I thought I will write about what about the people she's stolen dogs from? And so I sort of made up these storylines and connected them in through this short story that I'd written called Gifted and Talented, which I think it was in Hobart in 2014, I think it came out. So it's took a number of years to kind of craft the actual novel around, you know, that story.
Yeah.
The book is written in very short sections, which was also my way of tricking myself into writing a novel because I really didn't want to. So I kept just writing forward, each character line forward in short sections, which I do not recommend because I met lots of editing and going back into it because my two kid novels I did with outlines and a clear idea of start, middle, finish. This I had no idea where it was going. So, but I guess
these things happen. So I just interviewed a woman. Actually, I've known her for a couple of years, and she wrote a novella called Whimsy, but really like it was a novella that it's a series of short stories that are like there is a loose connection, but she likes short stories and novellas, and she was like, I'm just going to sort of make this a thing.
Yeah,
like, exactly. That's going to be my thing.
That's exactly what I did too. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it the traditional way or the way I've done it before, you know?
Yeah.
And it really did. I did almost my original idea, and it didn't quite work that way, was to write a novel in flash fiction, like so that each section could be its own story. And there are a lot of sections that could be.
But that's the way her book is. Like I've heard this from people that write short stories, right? There's sort of that MFA route where people are like, oh, I'm going to craft this thing. And then there's this other thing where it's like, I'm going to kind of make my own thing and I'm going to do it the way I do it.
Yeah.
So let me ask, because one of the premises of the show is that everybody writers are writers because they want to explore questions. And whether it's fiction or nonfiction, there's a question that you're just like, what the hell does this mean? And then you spend time dealing with that. So what was the question? Like, what was the thing do you think that sparked, oh, this area, these people, like this stuff?
Well, part of it is I'm like sort of fascinated with suburbia in a way. That was part of it. As kind of, I grew up in suburbia in the 60s, 70s, and just sort of the way that suburbia is really like kind of everywhere now, but just this whole idea that there's these towns where everyone has their separate kind of existence, and you kind of know what's going on, but you don't really know what's going on with your neighbors. Whereas probably like even in your like suburban Pittsburgh neighborhood and my Brooklyn neighborhood.
Yeah, totally different.
Right?
Yeah. I know all of my neighbors. Like we all the houses are this far away. Like, yeah.
It's a totally kind of different experience. So I thought I wanted to write a book about people who are kind of on their own journey And all are, and all of the characters are kind of are searching for, I mean, sounds so kind of corny, but they are all searching for meaning and connection in their lives. Yeah. Some of them have had actual concrete loss. One is a widower. One is sort of questioning their gender. One is recently divorced. One is the, kind of like aging movie star who's basically losing his career. Yeah. One is a novelist who's writing blocked. Yeah. So they're all kind of stuck and searching. So I kind of wanted these characters to somehow be within each other's sort of geographic area. Yeah. And like how, and again, they all love dogs. They all have dogs, and they all then lose their dogs.
So it's more, so it sounds like it's more about the question, like yourself, like it's the questioning of the self, right? Like it's and less about exploration. I just interviewed Sergio Troncosa, and we were talking about, his latest book, and there is something about this idea, I think, that everybody always feels like an outsider. I think everybody, even if you're a white male Christian, whatever, upper class, like there is something about the human existence that always makes you feel like you do not fit in.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm totally there. I think like everything I've ever written, for even my kid books, are about people who are just like, you don't quite fit in. And I think you're right. I think everybody feels that way, even though our culture doesn't like actually show that necessarily. It's like, groups of girls hanging out together and guys like, playing sports. And it's like, every single one of those people is sort of like twisted up in their own psyche.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of marketing and stuff is all about like, if you do this, you'll be surrounded by people like you. Right. It's all about like, you'll have a family and a group and a thing. So it sounds a little bit like this is an exploration of like, the bullshit of that.
Exactly. No, I like that. Like, I may use that as a quote.
Absolutely. You should. I mean, I'm fascinated because I think that writers have to be like, I'm a super extrovert, but some of that masks me observing things because I never feel like I fit in anywhere. So like my extroversion is about trying to see how things work, and then writing is trying to work out what just happened. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have some of that as you're like.
Yeah, I'm pretty extroverted too. I'm sort of, my day job is I'm a psychotherapist. So I'm also like kind of, I don't use anybody's story in my work, but I'm sort of good with people. But there's always part of me that always has to have like, I reach a saturation point, and that's when I'm synthesizing like the information I've taken in, both sort of personally and professionally. And then, it's all to me about, for the writing is like processing, like always like the darker side, even though I wouldn't say I'm my work is considered pretty like uplifting, ultimately, even though it's kind of twisted. Sure. It's like kind of acerbic and dark, but ultimately kind of like, life affirming or something.
I mean, I also think, I always tell people, I think that the human condition, the baseline is melancholy. Yeah. I just feel like, you're born and you're immediately dying. Everything you know is going to go away. And that makes those moments of joy so much greater. Right. Like and I've had people say like, well, that's depressing. And I'm like, I think it would be really depressing to be happy all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's just, I want to be sad that my dog is not going to be here. Like, the moments now mean something different than they did 5 years ago. They shouldn't, but they do.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I feel like dark and acerbic is sort of the human condition.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You can use that too. So when you sit down to write, like as you got done, like as you were sort of exploring those things, this is sort of a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Like what did you uncover about what you thought about that stuff? Like as you were exploring the question of fitting in and like, what does this mean? And what is identity? And like, were there things that you discovered through your characters that you're like, oh shit, this is really interesting?
I probably did, but I think I can't like identify exactly what they are now. But it's interesting because like people are always asking me like, you know, how is writing like being a therapist? And I've always thought like, you know, I mean, when I work as a therapist, if I'm talking to someone and we're exploring someone, you know, kind of something that they need to work on, I'm always thinking in myself, it's like, yeah, that's something I should think about too. So, you know, I think probably with all of these characters, whatever I made them go through and whatever their search and journey was and whatever they discover ultimately is, on some level, is something I've kind of been doing myself, right? Finding a way towards myself. So
I also know it happened a year ago or 18 months ago. Like whenever you finish the book, like it's over.
Yeah.
Those characters are kind of behind me now. I'm thinking about the next ones.
Yeah, it's sort of. I mean, it's really interesting when you have a book coming out, because it's like, I mean, I think I actually finished the first draft of this, you know, 5 years ago at least.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was like a year or two of rewrites, and then there's the waiting to get a publisher, and then there's the year of working with the editor. So it's like they've been around. These characters have been around for a long time. And now that I'm promoting the book, I'm more in it with them again too. And I love them all. And it's sort of like people are always like, which one's your favorite character? And you know,
that's an unanswerable question.
Yeah, it's really totally unanswered.
The dogs are your favorite characters.
The dogs, definitely.
Because I haven't read the book yet, but I'm positive they each have their own personality, don't they?
Definitely do.
I learned that from the first 30 seconds when Ollie jumped on the couch. I'm like, oh, the dogs are not just placeholders in this book.
Yeah, no. They actually kind of have their own personalities, and they also sort of have their own sort of like they're not, there's not a lot of like character exploration.
Sure.
Definitely direct the action.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
As they do in real life.
Exactly.
We just had a party here at the house for the 4th of July, and all anybody wanted to do was hang out with Maxx.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
About half the meat I bought, I think, went into his stomach. So the book is out now.
Yes, it is.
And we're going to end with this. So because sort of the other premise of the show is something that you touched on, which is why I hate the question that I asked, which is that the sort of art of writing the book, that ends, and then there's the publishing process, and then you have this product, and those are different things. Like you experience them differently, right? Like one is sort of you're in it every day, and one is sort of like revisiting a hometown. Like, oh yeah, that was nice, but I don't really fit in there anymore. So now that you've done the novel, are you going to do that again? Or are you going to go back to the short stories?
Well,
yes.
You know, I have a short story collection, which I am, you know, kind of working on the final details of. So I've sort of been in short, like after I finished this, I was super into that. And I also recently finished like a kind of a chapbook kind of collection of very like almost flash fictions, which the story collection is it's tentatively called Almost Deadly, Almost Good. And it's based on the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues. So each story kind of has a sin or a virtue connected to it, and they're linked. And then this shorter thing that I just sort of finished is also very based on short fiction. But I think I've gotten those out of my system, so that now I think I do need to sit down, and I kind of have an idea for a new novel, which could be kind of cool. But I'm resisting it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, let's do promotion of Dawg. I mean, whoever wants to do promotional work for your book, nobody wants to do it. So avoidant at like starting the new novel.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'll try to, tweet about my book.
Yeah. I love it.
You should do it. I mean, it's a good thing that I'm doing it. It's great that I'm doing this with you, but it's sort of like, I really should be writing.
Yeah. No, I 100%. I think it's funny that you went to flash fiction. Like, what's the shortest possible fiction I can do? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and spend some time there.
Totally.
It's the most writer shit in the whole world. But, everybody has their voice and their space and like where they're at. And like, I was working with a writer the other day, and she was doing this thing and it wasn't working. And I'm like, if it's not working, that's not where your voice is. Like, don't like, you can probably do it because you're talented, but like, why?
No, I know. And I also feel like, because I love reading short fiction and I love to write it, there's something to be also, when I first started I wrote the 2 kid novels before I wrote my short story collection, Staggerwing. And I never thought I could write a short story. I just felt like that is such a talent to be able to, in a concise way, grab people, say something, make it meaningful. And so to me, it's like, even though it takes less time than writing a novel, it's so gratifying. I feel so, I mean, I honestly, if I get like a short story published in a journal that I respect and like and admire, and, you know, basically you shouldn't like submit to any that you don't. To me, it's almost as exciting, I hate to say, as getting a publishing deal.
Sure.
I'm like, it's just, to me, it's such a achievement to write a short story that people want to read.
Well, and particularly because journal publishing is super hard, particularly in the ones that people, I mean, it's, if you're not a writer, you don't know, it's like hitting a lottery. So yeah, you should be excited. And also short stories are they're both austere, but also not, because every word and sentence matters in a way that it's different than in and so you have to both like strip it down, but also make it be big and puffy. And like, I don't know how to really, I can't edit short stories. I can edit books and magazine pieces, but like something short, I'm like, I don't know, take all this out, or like, I need 4,000 more words. What's here? So that's a talent. So you should absolutely be excited when you get those, as excited. And they pay about the same. So that works out. Well, Alice, thank you so much for taking a little time. I hope you and Ollie and your family enjoy the beach. And I'm looking forward to picking this up and reading it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Brad. This is really fun.
Yeah, it is. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Well, there you have it. That was Alice Kaltman. Her book, Dawg Towne, is out right now. Before we get out of here, just a couple reminders. If you like what you heard, do us those 2 favors we talked about at the top of the show. Tell your friends about us. Leave us a review. While you're at it, don't forget to check out all the other programs on the Solid Listen Podcast Network, including the flagship Mother May I Sleep With podcast with host and our Solid Listen podcast queen, Molly McAleer. Don't forget, we have these video podcasts coming out about every Monday and Friday. You can always find them on the Solid Listen Network YouTube channel, or you can catch the audio version wherever you listen to the Downtown Writers Jam. Speaking of, the Jam is out every Wednesday, so make sure you get yourself subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And remember, you can always catch us on Twitter and Instagram at The Writers Jam. Until the next time, I will see you around the internet.